3 full droppers, and I ended up falling asleep. And when I woke up the next morning, it was 7 a.m., which is actually later than I normally sleep. And I had no body aches. I still had a little stuffy nose. But other than that, both my husband and I, and by the way, we are in our 70s, and I have to say, it is a miracle plant.
Welcome to the Miracle Plant Podcast, the show that inspires, promotes, and gives you a daily dose of inspiration from the people who have used cannabis to change their lives in extraordinary ways. Here's your host, Justin Benton.
And welcome back to the Miracle Plant Podcast, where we share extraordinary stories from this misunderstood plant with so many names. Today, we're having back a couple of guests for the first time, having guests come back on the show to tell their story about, in this day and age of COVID-19 and viruses, what happened to them? Because I know there's so much information that's going on and things like that. We wanted to bring these guests back on so they can tell their stories. So welcome back to the show, Amy Goss. How you feeling?
Thank you. I'm doing great. I'm feeling great, happy, healthy, and looking forward to getting out of this pandemic and getting to the other side of it.
You and me both. We're almost here at the end of 2020. I think I saw someone that had a Christmas ornament that had 2020, and the last zero on 2020 was a toilet paper roll or whatever. So yeah, we'll never forget 2020. And I think this New Year's Eve is going to be a very special, happy time to be spent. And the reason why we're having this episode is to talk about COVID, because I know you and some others that are in our circle have experienced COVID. And I just wanted to have people hear it from the horse's mouth, if you will, their experience of COVID, and maybe there's something that you went through that could help them and the people that are hearing this show or their loved ones, or they could forward to someone, a friend that had got COVID that might help them get through it. So if you wouldn't mind sharing, what was your experience, and tell us a little bit more about how it went.
Yeah, so we, back in March, along with everybody else, just carrying what was happening and getting the shutdown orders and the stay-at-home orders. So while we were all told to shelter at home and stay in place, my husband, who works for the prison, they were moving inmates around in an attempt to social distance and figure out how to keep that population from getting sick. The problem was they were bringing in buses with sick inmates on the buses into different prisons. We knew it was probably inevitable that we were going to get sick, that he was going to contract it from there. By the time July came, he got sick, he tested positive for COVID and started really having some strong symptoms. And then about 1 week later, I also got sick. So we both had it. It got interesting from there, though, because he does not take CBD products, and I take 101 CBD on the regular. It's like my favorite. I start my day with it, I end my day with it. So we got to do our own science experiment at home and see the difference.
What were the symptoms for you, and what were the symptoms for him, and what was the difference between the two of you?
He started out with some really bad joint pain and body aches and very, very flu. He had high fevers for days that just wouldn't go away. The fatigue was probably the worst thing. And then when I got sick, I did not have any of the joint pain. I didn't have body aches. I did have that slight fever feeling when you know you have a fever, but you're not delirious or anything. And I had some nausea, but I was smart enough to take my 101 CBD for that, which worked amazing. I was so happy to be able to use that. And then he, on the other hand, it seemed like every time I went to check on him or whatever, he was just laying on the floor, just wherever he lay, just sick and just not wanting to move and just laying there and trying to write it out. So I felt horrible for him. His sickness lasted probably about 3 weeks.
Wow.
And then mine was less than a week.
Wow.
So it really was a big difference.
And so what was the difference between how you guys were treating each other? What was he taking? What were you taking?
He took over-the-counter like Tylenol and ibuprofen, things of that nature. Nothing really helped him. It was just something he was going to have to write out. And at one point he did call his doctor and they prescribed something for the nausea, which helped him a little bit. we're both not too excited about taking, pharmaceutical drugs and stuff just because side effects are usually worse than how they help you. So he was more of a, let me just write it out and get through it. But because of the high fever that he had, he slept a lot. So I think the time passed more quickly than he even probably realized. And then, like I said, I didn't need to take Tylenol. I didn't take ibuprofen. I would take my 101 boost in the morning, which I always do because that's just a great energetic way to start the day. I think I took the Alleviate, which is more for like the pain and whatever. I probably took that once or twice, just thought that was a good thing to throw in. And then I always take Chill at night regardless. So I was getting a nice steady stream of the CBD, and I didn't feel good. I wasn't like ready to go and run a marathon or anything, but I certainly wasn't anywhere near how he was doing. And I was able to get over it much, much quicker. And then I could take care of him and get him through what he was going through.
So when you said you were taking the boost in the morning and the Alleviate sometimes during the day and the Chill at night, how much were you taking?
I always do a half dropper. So I don't think I ever needed to double up or anything because I didn't feel that badly. So I just did the half dropper of each, which is pretty much what I do regularly anyways. And I felt pretty good about, and I combine that with eating right, eating a good diet, getting enough sleep, drinking water, all the things that we all know that we're supposed to be doing anyways.
That's awesome. And so how are you? So you got this back in this summer. Now we're towards the end of the year. How are you with feeling closer to 100%?
Yeah, I feel we actually both now, we feel really well. He also does a plant-based diet with me. So we prioritize our health and we do everything we can to stay healthy because that's so important. So we're both feeling much, much better now. Like I had mentioned before, I did lose the sense of smell with the COVID, and that's taken a long time to come all the way back. So I would say it's about 80% back now, but I haven't had any lingering symptoms. It's interesting though, he has still felt a lot of the fatigue, and he has some doctors that he sees at Stanford, and they told him you should expect even months from now, you may have days where suddenly the fatigue is back and you feel it and you're still in the grip of that. And he's definitely experienced that.
It would be remiss not to ask and see how your son's doing since you were last on here. Are there any updates in college and all that good stuff that you were talking about last time?
Yes, he just yesterday finished his very first college semester. And the couple of weeks leading up to finals, besides the stress that all of these teachers and students are going through with this crazy year, finals week adds a whole new level of stress to that. So he was experiencing an increase in anxiety, which does increase your Tourette's tics as well. So we did a free consultation with 101 CBD with Janet, and she gave us great information of how to change the dosage and be consistent with that. So he started doing that. Worked really well for him. Yesterday, he finished his last final, and it looks like he's going to finish with a 4.0 his very first semester. So
that sounds like that overachiever son of yours that we always say. That is just amazing news. And he likes the Chill X, right?
He does. That he will not be without it. That is the product that helps calm his anxiety, and it has a great effect on his tics. He just won't go anywhere without it. I think he literally has it in his car and in his dorm room. It's helped him so much. We're very thankful.
Has he had a chance to try the new blackberry cobbler flavor yet?
He has. He likes that one. He has a couple of other favorites, but that's actually the one he has right now. We both like that one. It's really good.
Me too. That is just a tasty one, and that's our holiday flavor, and it'll probably stick around. So sometimes we'll bring a summer flavor and a winter flavor, and if people just go nuts about it, we'll keep it on the shelf. That is awesome, Amy. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there any other words of advice or wisdom that you might share with somebody who either just came down with COVID or knows someone who came down with COVID, how best to get through it?
I really think it's important, like we were saying, we all know what we need to do for our health. You need to do all the things. That's eating, taking your vitamins, whatever you might be lacking, getting good sleep, drinking a lot of water. And I really truly believe that the CBD has made such a difference for my starting immunity. For one, I feel like that helped me not to get as sick as I could have. And then I think that it's important for people to know that when you do take it, you need to be consistent. You need that steady stream so that it can go to work and do what it's supposed to do in your body.
Awesome. Great news. I'm so glad you guys are healthy again and you were able to come on and share your story and just give some insights of someone who's actually been through it so others can understand it. Thanks so much for coming back on, Amy. We love having you on, and we look forward to having you on again. We're going to bring another guest on now. Connie Wellik. Thank you for joining us, Connie, on this special episode of the Miracle Plant Podcast, where we talk to people who've gone through COVID and some things that helped them get through this tough virus. So, Connie, welcome back to the Miracle Plant Podcast. We're so happy to have you on. How you doing?
I'm happy to be on. Happy to be.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, we had Amy on earlier and she shared her story. And I just know that there's a lot of people out there that are really uncertain and living in fear and don't want to catch this virus. And it just happens to be that you as well had a brush with the COVID-19. And I just would love for you to share your story to help people hear it from the horse's mouth. This is what happened. This was my story. I made it through the other side, and maybe it can help someone as well.
I'm always happy to share about the Miracle Plant because it has basically, I call it a lifesaver, because in my previous podcast, I shared about my journey with neuropathy, which had me just basically homebound, unable to walk, and just miserable. And when I found 101 CBD, it was just like a miraculous intervention into my own health. I have been on a health journey most of my adult life, but I also am a child of the 60s. And when I learned about CBD, I thought, not going to go with the marijuana, the THC. I never enjoyed it, never enjoyed being high. And so when I first heard about it, I was a little reluctant, but the pain I was going through just basically said something, I've got to do something about this. And the pharmaceuticals that I were prescribed, they just didn't work for me. And I didn't like the feeling of being altered with pharmaceutical drugs either. So when I walked up the stairs to the old building here in Ventura, I was in so much pain that my husband had to actually help me up the stairs. And I talked with Janet, who happened to be there that day, and she suggested that I use Alleviate for the pain. And so that was like at the end of 2018, beginning of 2019. And I have been taking the CBD oil. I started off taking it 4 times a day, because the pain was so bad. But as my pain began to heal and my nerve endings began to heal, I basically take CBD twice a day. I take it in the morning while I'm fixing my coffee, and then I take it in the evening about a half an hour before bed. And it has kept the neuropathy at bay. I no longer have any of the neuropathy pain. I sleep so well, and I go through my day feeling energetic and strong. And I also eat very well. My husband and I started eating vegan a little over a year ago, and so we're whole plant based eating. And I also do yoga and meditation. So I feel with those 3 things, I was in pretty good shape when my husband was exposed to COVID at work and brought it home. And so while I was tending to him, about 2 days after he came down with symptoms and tested positive, I started having just cold symptoms. It was a little runny nose. And then Thanksgiving night, I woke up about 2 a.m. with really horrific body aches. And it reminded me of just a really bad cold that I'd had in the past, where your body just aches and there's just no way to get comfortable. So I was thinking, Alleviate or Chill. And so I ended up grabbing the closest thing, which was Chill, next to my bed. And I took a dropper full of chill and I, waited about 20 minutes and the pain was still pretty excruciating. I'm not going to minimize the body aches from this virus. It hits hard and fast. And I took another dropper about 30 minutes later. I started feeling a little better, but I still couldn't get comfortable. So it ended up being, I think, 3 full droppers within a period of about an hour and a half. And I ended up falling asleep. And when I woke up the next morning, it was 7 a.m., which is actually later than I normally sleep. And I had no body aches. I still had a little stuffy nose. That night, the day after Thanksgiving, I did lose my sense of smell and my sense of taste. But other than that, both my husband and I, and by the way, we are in our 70s. Both of us my husband has just recovered from radiation therapy for prostate cancer, and I have a chronic lung infection that pops up every now and then. But since I've been using the CBD, I have not had that. I have not had any reoccurrence of the chronic infections that I have suffered with for pretty much all my life. And I have to say, it is a miracle plant. I know people think, oh yeah, maybe placebo effect or whatever. You believe enough in it that you are feeling healed. But no, my last blood test was perfect. My cholesterol, which my doctor was saying, you have a family history, you probably need to go on statin drugs. And I said, no, I'm not going on statin drugs. I'm going to eat healthy and keep taking my CBD. My last blood test was perfect. I mentioned on the last podcast, my daughter called me. She's a nurse practitioner at Kaiser Permanente. And she said, I can't believe this. Your blood test looks more like a 30-year-old than a 73-year-old. And so that, of course, encouraged me because that's science right there. That's not placebo effect. I am a total fan of this whole plant, organic, cold extracted juice, basically, that I use every day, not only for any ailments that I have, but just to stay healthy. And I have no doubt in my mind that it contributes to the homeostasis in my own body, that it helps me process my food better, my exercise. Everything about my life today really is a result of feeling good enough, feeling well enough by taking this product. And it has definitely changed my life for the better.
Thank you for sharing. And I love how specific you are. And I know that you're speaking directly to people that need to hear these stories, especially with COVID. And like I said last time you were on, we didn't know the power of the plant. We knew what the power of this plant could do for our son, which was our miracle. But then stories like yours, when you came, and I'm pretty sure that I learned more than 100 times more about neuropathy just by you walking in. And we're really focusing on working with neuropathy and support groups and giving away products for free to people that are suffering, because I know there's so many people suffering from neuropathy, and it's just night and day. And there's no placebo effect when there's tons of pain ravaging your body. And then all of a sudden, 2 or 3 days later, there isn't as much or any. And then so to me, it's just, that's the whole, we all know that eating right and thinking and drinking water and exercising and sleeping, those are the pillars. And this is part of eating right. This is eating a whole plant that just has all of these nutrients and enzymes and components that speak directly to our body, that allow it to heal itself. Just like you said, when you first took, the CBD, when you were feeling the symptoms from this virus, that you got a good night's sleep. And there just isn't about anything better for our bodies to heal than a good night's sleep. And I remember you were saying that, so your husband got it as well. What was his experience like?
His reaction, I think, just because of going through radiation so recently, I think his body was not in the same place that my body was in. And so he did have more, I think, serious symptoms. We actually, because of my chronic lung condition, I have a nebulizer in my home. And our nurse practitioner prescribed albuterol for breathing treatments. And so he did have it stronger than I did. His symptoms were much stronger. He was in bed basically for about 3 days But that was not because he wanted to be. That was because his daughter told him he had to be in bed for 3 days, and he's always very obedient to her because she's a nurse. And so he did have breathing treatments twice a day for 3 days. And I think that for people who are worried about COVID, people who are really afraid, I think the worst thing a person can do is not to do what you can prior to the symptoms getting worse. Because I really have no doubt that if he hadn't had the nebulizer treatments, it probably would have gone to pneumonia, because he was a smoker for 50 years. So his lungs are not in great condition. And I know that since he's been eating healthy and having a healthier lifestyle, he's gotten better with that, but it did attack his lungs. And so his oxygen, we were monitoring his oxygen saturation and then taking the breathing treatments. But again, he's 75 years old. He just got off radiation from his cancer, and he's been taking the CBD all along. In fact, with the radiation treatments, he actually had 0 side effects. He was told he would be fatigued. He was told that he might have pain. He was actually told he might have to wear diapers because of the effects of the radiation. And he had none of that. He was healthy, strong. We were doing our exercise routine. We walk every day for 30 minutes, and I do yoga. He can't do yoga yet. I think it's all in his head that he can't do it, but
there might be a little bit of machoism in there too. There's some of us guys with some macho.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and he's an athlete. He played, football in college. And so that might be a little strange for him. But I have to say, as far as him having comorbidities, he was the classic person who would, I believe, had he not been proactive in getting the breathing treatments right away. And I think so many of my peers, older people, are afraid to go to the hospital, and for good reason, because that's what I always say. People die in hospitals. I'm not going to the hospital. But if you need a preemptive treatment, breathing treatments in particular, because this virus does attack the lungs, I think it's important for people to see their doctor. But I also know for a fact, 100%, that the CBD helped both of us recover very quickly. Like I said, we both lost a sense of taste and smell, which is still not all the way back yet. But I can taste that delicious blueberry cobbler flavor when I take my CBD oil. Mm-hmm. And I love that. But yeah, we both recovered very quickly. It was so quick. As a matter of fact, I was like 2 days. He was like maybe 4 days. And we are both fine. We had no I call it aftershocks, where people are so fatigued and still aren't feeling quite up to it. He's been working every day this week. So he's fine. He's great, and so am I. And I have no doubt in my mind that the CBD is one of the reasons why we recovered so quickly and had such minimal symptoms of COVID-19.
Thank you for coming on and sharing your story. I just know there's a lot of confusion, and there's just a lot of different places where we're hearing information about this virus, and hearing people like yourself that have gone through it and made it to the other end, and some things that helped you that you could share with others is just what this Miracle Plant podcast is all about. And also, I wanted to remind anyone hearing this podcast that if you want to try this Miracle Plant, just reach out to us. We'll send you a product for free to try. Anyone who's experiencing any issues with COVID, please reach out to us. Again, CBDA, the whole plant of hemp, helps our bodies, when consumed the way it was grown, find that balance, that homeostasis through the entourage effect of just consuming the plant the way it was meant to be. So reach out to us at info@themiracleplant.org. Again, just shoot us an email. Say you've got a loved one or someone that you want to try this Miracle Plant. info@themiracleplant.org, and we'll be happy to get your mailing address and send you one out. Or you can stop by one of our stores in Ventura, California, Ojai, California, or Denver, Colorado. We have to wrap this one up, and I'm just so happy you came on, Connie. Thank you. And I'm sure we're going to have you back on as we continue to share these amazing stories about this miracle plant. So thanks again, Connie.
Thank you, Justin. It's my pleasure.
All right. Once again, I wanted to say thanks to you for coming by to the Miracle Plant podcast. It means the world to us. Please this and share this so everybody who can hear these amazing stories, or anybody who's experienced COVID wants to hear directly from someone who's had it and how they got through it. So please like it, please share it, please leave a comment. It means the world to us. Also, we like to go through and highlight one review of the week. And this week we have one from Billabug. It has only been a few months for me getting into CBD versus what label CBD has gotten from society in this lifetime. And each time I hear these stories, they keep me motivated to keep learning. The best way to trust information you hear is from real life situations. And this is the best place regarding CBD, hemp, CBDA for the honest and correct information. Thanks for being here. Never stop. And that was Billabug. Thank you for the review, and please review it. It means the world to us, and it allows the algorithms out there to get us more noticed, and more people get to hear these incredible stories. So thanks for coming by the Miracle Plant podcast, and we will see you next week.